Welcome back to another free kind of health series that I'm delivering on applying the wisdom of Chinese medicine. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Lee, and I'm both a naturopathic physician as well as a registered acupuncturist. And today we're talking about building restorative sleep. And today we're going to cover three topics. I'm going to share with you the Chinese medicine perspective on sleep. We're going to talk about creating that ideal environment for sleep. And then I'm also going to be talking about some dietary suggestions to calm the mind. And remember, if you are enjoying this content, please give it a thumbs up and please continue to share this with your family and friends. We really appreciate that. So before we launch into today's topic, I do want to do a quick recap of what we talked about last week. Last week was a really exciting, talk that I delivered on boosting brain power. And I covered three topics. I covered exercising your brain, both mentally as well as physically. We talked about specific nutrition for the brain, and we talked about microalgae. We talked about ginkgo. And then we also ended off that talk about how an organized space around you leads to more of an organized mind there. So that's what we covered last week on kind of boosting brain power, and with that, I'm just super excited because I'm working on a kind of a hands-on brain course, and please stay tuned to that. So I'd like to start the series here. I always like to ask a few questions. So today we're talking about restorative sleep for everyone who just joined us. And here's the sleep assessment. I just want you to ponder some of these questions. And again, in my summary that's on our website at yourbriohealth.com, I'm going to be posting more questions. And you can please use this as a journal just to help yourself just kind of assess where you are when it comes to sleep. Okay, so first few questions are, do you often have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep? Okay, that's question one. Number two, are you tired by the afternoon, but you can't even take a nap in the afternoon? Number three, do you need alcohol to fall asleep? Number four, do you have dark circles under your eyes? And number five, is your bedroom used for, as an office? Is it bright? Does it have a TV in there? So good. Thanks, Christy, for your answers there. Now I'm gonna jump into sleep. I've kept sleep towards the end of my 6-part series, and in fact, I'm gonna be I've got a couple of bonus talks that I want to address. But sleep is something that's just a huge big part of my practice. There, I treat a lot of insomnia, and I think it's because of people having difficulty with sleep because of our modern day lifestyle and modern day culture. They end up having a lot of mental clarity issues. They end up having a lot of energy issues. So that's a big part of my practice there. So I end up doing a lot of personalized consultations because everyone's different. Everyone has a different reason why they're having sleep issues. And I'm very intentional with the talk today where I don't want to just simply give you just some recommendations like, take valerian root or do this. I want to help you kind of process your own reason why you might be struggling with sleep. So come with me on this kind of adventure. And I want to start by talking about insomnia. With insomnia, a lot of patients are asking me, well, how do you define that? And when I do a detailed health assessment, I'm asking questions like, well, are you having difficulty falling asleep? Some people are like, no problem falling asleep. But then they have problems staying asleep. And I consider that insomnia as well, because if you look at it from a Chinese medicine perspective, you should be sleeping all through the night without waking up. And a lot of my older patients, they are having issues. They have to go up in the middle of the night. They have to go to the bathroom. And although that's common, it's actually not the healthiest. So So I customize based on what type of insomnia symptoms that my patients have. So some people have just unrefreshed sleep. They could be sleeping for hours, but they just don't feel refreshed there. Or some of my patients they wake up really early in the morning and they just can't, they're wired. They can't get back to sleep. All of that really affects that solid like 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And today we're going to be addressing that. I'm going to help you kind of process through that. So I'm sure we all agree that sleep is just super important for maintenance. For everybody that is like every single healthy patient that I work with, they all sleep very well. They sleep very sound, and they have a great sleep routine, which is like a great sleep hygiene. But they also they also get that restorative sleep there, and that's what I really wish for all of my patients, because that really resets everything. Now, I like to think of sleep as, for those of you who know me, I'm sort of like this closet Disney fan, and my wife and my kids are huge Disney fans. And I think one time I was in Disneyland, I was just watching, I was around there, and I was like, how do they keep everything so like spick and span? They keep everything so clean. When we used to go to Disney a lot, there wasn't any like ride issues. It was just very clean, very well maintained there. And then I think I saw a documentary, and then we had an opportunity to sort of go behind the scenes, and I really realized that it's actually at nighttime that they are, there's a full on crew that is cleaning, scrubbing, power washing, but also more importantly, they're maintaining the rides, right? They're making sure that everything is working well, and that time when I was at Disneyland, I was just like observing all of that, and I was like, that's so important for them to keep everything functioning really well. So the same thing, that's what happens in our sleep. Our body needs that maintenance time, and it needs to like release growth hormones so we can repair, and it's really that restoration time during sleep. So let's dive into what the TCM, or the Chinese medicine approach on sleep, is. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the Yin and Yang balance. And I really like how Chinese medicine explains it this way. So we know that the nighttime is more of the Yin energy. And I'll elaborate more on Yin and Yang in just a moment. But the nighttime is more Yin energy. So during the day, that's Yang energy. And my Chinese professor taught me this. He goes, Yang energy in the daytime, this is when we get to fulfill all of our desires, like what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. But the yin time, or the nighttime, this is when our body needs to take care of its desires. This is when the body needs to self-regulate. And I really like how that's how Dr. Wong talked about the importance of sleep and balance. So the take-home message here is actually really looking for that balance in your life, because oftentimes with my patients with insomnia, there's always something that's out of balance. And we'll dive a bit deeper to explore what the imbalances are. So yin and yang, yang is, again, what I said, the daytime energy. It's kind of like the active energy, versus yin is more of a passive energy. Yang is like the heat, where yin is more cooling, more cold. Yang is the energy of the body, where yin is kind of like the blood or the body tissue or the fluids. So yang is more functional, it's more the function of the body, where yin is more of like the substance there. Are you guys with me? I'm trying to simplify it without going into too much of the philosophy there. And so if you guys are with me, just throw in a yes there. Maybe to go a little bit further. So yang energy, maybe translating that into Western language, is, do you have like too much nervous energy? Versus yin could be like more of that quiet, calm energy. Yang, sometimes it's like I have patients who have like excessive amount of exercise. That's a bit more yang. Versus yin is a little bit more of that quiet energy, like I said earlier, but more of like meditation. Another way of looking at yang is like maybe the sweet foods or excessive amount of rich foods. Yin is more of like simple foods, sometimes even more of like the bitter foods. So my question to you is, understanding sort of this yin and yang, you start seeing this kind of balance, but you start seeing this kind of duality there. And it's really important to keep everything within balance there. So let's translate that again into, my favorite topic is like neuroscience and understanding the brain. And yang energy is that sympathetic nervous system. You've heard me talk a lot about the sympathetic nervous system. That's the go, go, go. That's the adrenaline. That's the fight or flight there. Versus yin is more of that parasympathetic, that rest and digest. And this is, when I work with my patients one-on-one, this is where I'm really helping them understand what's tipped out of balance there. And more often than not, it's usually a lot more of that sympathetic nervous system. There's a lot more stress that's going on. There's a lot of like worry. There's a lot of go, go, go activity. We're doing things. And then in life, we actually don't have that just sitting around. Like we don't think it's productive, and it's kind of shunned upon for us to just kind of sit and relax and just kind of do nothing. But again, there's a time and place for both. Okay, so my question to you is, what is tipping you out of balance there? Are you having information overload because you're just processing so much stuff at work, or you're watching a lot of like YouTube, or is it too much information coming in? Are you worried too much? Is that just too much worry that's on your plate right now? Or do you not have enough fun in your life? Is there not enough playtime right now? Or is there not enough movement or not enough exercise in your life there? So, yeah, and it's really important to really assess where you are in this balance, where you are in this sympathetic and parasympathetic. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is creating that ideal environment for sleep. Now, this is going to be a little bit more, the last two sections are going to be a little bit more practical there, but that sleep environment is huge there. And now, to be honest with you, I didn't, earlier on in my years, I didn't have a lot of issues with sleep. So I could sleep anywhere, and I kind of took that for granted. But during different situations in my life where I was under a tremendous amount of stress or experienced a bit of trauma, I really understood what it was like to be sleep deprived. I really understood, and I could really feel for my patients that have been really struggling with insomnia. And again, some of them are because of situational, short-term stress. Some could be a side effect of some of the medication. So it's the causes of insomnia. I really want to make sure that you guys understand that I take it very seriously, like the struggles that my patients are going through when it comes to sleep. But talking about the environment, I often overlook how important the environment is. So creating that cozy, peaceful environment is very important. And that's why one of my assessment questions was, what is your sleep environment like? Do you share a same home office with your bedroom? And these are important questions to figure out. Like other things to create a peaceful environment. What's the quality of your mattress? What's the quality of even your bedding? Do you have like electronics there in your room? Is there a TV in your room? Are you on an iPad right before you sleep? Speaking of an iPad, I talk a lot about just the blue lights, the different types of e-readers, and we know that blue light actually stimulates a different part of the brain that prevents that melatonin to release, and that melatonin is really important to help you sleep. So those are some obvious tips. Looks like I have a question. Okay, let's see, Jess. the yin-yang balance is a fascinating topic. Will you be sharing ideas on how to increase yin energy for those? Excellent question. Yeah, for especially a lot of us are kind of over yang. And thank you for asking that question, because I will talk a little bit about foods and nutrition in the next section in the next few minutes there. So good, thank you for asking that. So again, we're back at the environment of the sleep, and this is something that I just want you to create that welcoming, peaceful environment there. And this is where I really would encourage you to keep the bedroom mainly for sleep and for sex, and try not to have any TV in there. When I was a student there, I had no choice. Where I had my home office, I had a laptop, I had my study, and so same with my bedroom in my tiny apartment there. But still, when I learned about importance of sleep, I was able to rig a certain curtain that gives me a little bit more of the privacy. That's that separation. And speaking of curtains, I think it's worthwhile to invest in these those shades that darken, that turn everything as pitch black as possible. And I've talked about this in some of my other talks, where I don't have like an alarm clock there with a bright light there. I don't have my phone in my room there. And if I do, for some reason I need an alarm clock, I will put it on airplane mode. Even with a smoke detector, if there's a tiny little light, I will cover it up with a bit of electrician's tape. I really try to create that environment as dark as possible so I can get into that deeper sleep there. I've also talked about just turning off Wi-Fi. So whatever you can do to create that peaceful environment with less interference there. And the last thing about the environment is that routine or that sleep hygiene there. And I think it actually is very important to just signal to your body to have that same routine all the time. And I know right now a lot of my patients are telling me they're falling asleep in front of the TV because their schedules are all over the place. They're watching a Netflix and they're falling asleep. Or do your best to avoid that. Really treat yourself to having a nice kind of warm bath, work at a deep breathing, kind of a stretching routine. Really kind of train yourself to fall asleep. Again, our body loves habits and loves routines. And I know this part is not very new. It's not a lot of this probably is common sense, but the reality is we're just not putting into practice. And believe me, this does work there. So Jess, I'm going to start answering some of your questions there, and I'm going to try to answer it a little bit more of the yin and yang balance as well, since you asked it that way. I'm going to start off with what's more yang in our diet, and the first thing that comes to my mind is like a stimulant. So definitely coffee, and if you're an avid coffee drinker and you really enjoy it, I would look for maybe either a substitute there, or if you are having insomnia issues, work at weeding that out of your system for a period of time. So, so the first thing I'm thinking about is coffee. Now, more of a yin thing for foods is actually keeping it rather simple. What I probably would recommend for if you're a little bit too excessive yang is go with a week period of 1 week's time frame of just focusing a lot more on yin. And ideas of yin is like a simplified diet where you might even incorporate a little bit of light fasting, where this is and maybe some simple foods is I like actually talking a lot about whole grains such as brown rice, whole wheat, even oats. Those are actually very calming to the mind there. Those are much more yin producing. And contrast that to maybe more yang. Yang are things like a lot heavier, richer foods, a lot of deep fried foods, a lot of the sugar there. So in your 1 week of let's call it a light detox there, you would avoid those spicy foods, refined sugars, avoid alcohol. Another thing that's very yang is overeating, or even eating late into the night. Those are more of the yang types of activities. Again, yin is a lot more keeping it simple. Another yin food that comes to my mind are having more mushrooms. There's a lot of, actually, it's really fascinating. Mushrooms, almost all mushrooms have this nervous system effect where it actually relaxes the nervous system. Even simple, like, button mushrooms that people eat, to all the way to, like, in another talk I talked about like reishi mushrooms there, which is good for the immune system. But mushrooms are incredibly grounding, and they really calm the central nervous system. Other yin types of foods are foods that have a lot of silicone in it. And like, what's silicone? But foods such as like barley. I mentioned oats earlier. Cucumbers, celery, lettuce. Those are foods that have a little bit more silicone, and silicone again helps your body kind of relax. It's a more yin, helps you again get grounded, deeper rest. And I intentionally I didn't want to just simply say like so I was going to talk about herbs as well. Some of my favorite herbs are chamomile, skullcap, Chinese skullcap, or even like valerian. But I'm very intentional not to say, okay, like take valerian, and because I don't want to say, put a Band-Aid on why you're not sleeping and by just taking these herbs there. And that's why I'm not putting a lot of emphasis on the herbs, even though like those are, some of my go-to herbs as well. But I really want you to think of this as a very holistic approach when it comes to insomnia. And to, again, do a recap, it's really about processing where's the imbalance. Is there this kind of stress that's just keeping you up at night, and you've got to deal with it? Is there like a deeper trauma, something that you've really hidden that's buried back there, that's just really throwing your whole kind of mental health out of balance there? Are you lacking in something? Are you lacking in some key nutrients there? Maybe so that's like, start thinking about that. That's number one, the TCM perspective, yin and yang. Number two is the environment. Create that sleep environment that's ideal for you. Really make it a real sanctuary, a real place that you can just totally relax there. And then thirdly, I talked about a lot of the different foods there. And just another one that actually comes to my mind is actually a lot of magnesium-rich foods. Magnesium is a very important mineral that does calm the system there. So I have a lot of my patients with insomnia, they'll take some magnesium, bisglycinates, and with varying kind of, specific dosages there, I should say, like everyone's a bit different. But dark leafy greens have magnesium, even some whole grains there. So magnesium is also really important. I hope that was helpful for everyone. Like usual, I have a lot of fun putting these together and just kind of tying in a bit of like the TCM, traditional Chinese medicine. And I really want to help all of you just really thrive in your health. And if you want to learn more about what we do, I just want to remind you that we have a newsletter. Go to our website at yourbriohealth.com and sign up for our newsletter, because it's our mission right now to really provide you guys with kind of current, relevant topics. And I want you to all participate and give us some feedback. So sign up for our newsletter, and don't forget to keep sharing this and click that like button. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.